It's really important to me to acknowledge that the Pivot Muse podcast is presented by Melanin Muse. And Melanin Muse is our love letter to Black women, sharing our genius and impact on this world. Owning our narrative, it's our time. So with that said, as you've pivoted throughout your life and career, who are your Melanin Muses and what impact have they made on your journey?
You see what I got behind me? See, I got a sister behind me. I did that on purpose today, and it's my mom. It's my mom. I'll say my mom and my sister. My mom is probably the best woman mother that I've ever even heard of. She's one of those types that doesn't want any type of attention, and she gives everybody all the attention that they could ever need. She's been married 53 years to my dad. They went to prom together. They went to high school together.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. They still throw snowballs at each other. When I try to reverse engineer why I am who I am and why I am how I am, it all boils down to good parenting. Then when it comes to my sister, she's 8 or 9 years older than me. And so she was like a second mother. And before we were talking, I was just texting her just now. She just always taught me everything I needed to know. And we're going to get into it a little bit later. I started HBCU grad, but my sister went to Hampton in 91. And I just got hip to HBCUs. I wanted to go to a HBCU just because she went to an HBCU. And she taught me how to dress. She just taught me everything.
Listen, shout out to the Melanin Muses. Perfect. The Pivot Muse brings you curated stories and advice from global professionals on making one of life's most important decisions, the pivot. I'm your host, Tina Marie, and I'm so excited to have our guest, Todd Finley, founder and CEO of HBCU Grad. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's get real and have this conversation because I'm super excited about it. And I'm going to start. You mentioned your first podcast show, and I listened to that first episode. We're talking about February 2019. Okay. We're here about to go into 2024. But let me tell you one thing for sure. You dropped some gems. I think the podcast is going to continue to grow. The brand is going to continue to grow. Your speaking engagements, everything you're doing will continue to grow because of your commitment to it. From that very first podcast episode, and 3 of them in particular, that is really solid advice. And I really want our audience to hear them and understand your perspective of why you said it. In reference to the decision to go to FAMU versus Hampton. Although you loved Hampton, FAMU was a better pick for you. What you said was self-awareness is so important. Self-awareness is literally the first pillar of our audience takeaways for the Pivot Muse. That's almost 5 years later. Like, how have you become more self-aware and why do you believe it's important?
It's important because if you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you've been. So when you start to talk about self-awareness, and that's amazing that you listened to that first episode. I'm impressed because I've never listened to it.
It was the first one. You like, okay, we got it over with.
Right. But self-awareness allows you to kind of lean into your strengths. A lot of people tell people to work on their weaknesses, but I'm a lean into your strengths type of guy and then lean into your truth. So with me, and when you start to talk about business and entrepreneurship, which I am, if you don't know what you don't know, you're in trouble. But if you understand what you don't know, you know where to get help. You understand where you need to hire. You understand where you can highlight and really push there. For me, I'm a 0 to 1 guy. I'm a guy that gets it going. I'm a vision. Let's push. But I'm not a great manager. I had to learn that, and now I have managers managing almost me as well. But that comes from self-awareness. So going into 2024, you start to look at where am I going to go and where am I going to bring more help in. And in 2024, I'm going to lean more into my personal brand because nobody really knows who I am. They know what I've built. And just like you were telling me, I don't even have a headshot. And that is terrible for someone at my level, quote unquote. I'm going to lean more on the personal brand. And how am I going to do that? It's going to be by creating more content. And I think I'm going to become a streamer. I haven't told anyone this, but I think I'm going to start streaming on a daily basis and then taking that content and then chopping it up. Self-awareness allows you to lean into your strengths and hire for your weaknesses from an entrepreneurship standpoint.
I love it. One of the other quotes you said is one of my favorites so far. You said, passion creates energy. Energy gives you the ability to work through anything. And that's so real. I'm going to say it again. You said, passion creates energy, and energy gives you the ability to work through anything. Thinking back, you've learned so many important lessons in business, starting HBCU grad in 2016, which, by the way, people, is the fastest growing HBCU brand. Okay. What are some of those major pivotal moments in life and business since 2016? And how has your passion for the HBCUs, provided that necessary fuel to push through and be here today?
Great question and great research. So in 2016, Instagram was really starting to take off, but it was still a little early. So when I look back at everything and I try to find my first account, and I found an account from December 2015 that I opened, but I didn't start it. 2016 is when we started to post on Instagram. And then February 1st, 2017 is when a friend of mine, Maurice Stewart, frat brother and everything, told me, you know what, you should probably post every day for Black History Month because that would be good for HBCUs. I posted the first time, February 1st, 2017, I posted K Michelle because K Michelle was at school with me. And it went viral. And I had never felt anything viral before. My phone had all the notifications on every 2 seconds. Bing, 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 bing. It was going crazy, Tina. So you start to look like, wait, are we on to something? Then we started to post every day. Then I said, you know, we're going to start posting 3 times a day. And then it kept going to the point where we started to post 8 times per day.
Wow.
Okay.
That's crazy.
I used to stay up at night and I would respond to every single comment until my eyes started to bleed because I felt that if you build community and you build real connections with people, you can really build something that has some real legs to stand on. I wanted the foundation to be these comments and where we would respond to everybody. We did that from 2016 to probably 2022. And then everybody knows Instagram's a different place now.
Yes, it is.
Instagram is a place where you got to be a professional to grow.
Right.
It's a little harder to grow. Before, it's simple supply and demand, but it's still understanding the nuances of how to post, when to post, and in which manner to post. Okay. When you start to look at how to post on Instagram, people are there to flex. We said we're going to focus on people that are graduating. And before this, nobody was highlighting people that graduated. People were just posting and trying to flex. When we started to lean into, with our name being HBCU grad, we started to lean into the graduates. That's kind of really what made us take off. Then we started to get into lifestyle. Then we started to look, okay, when's the best time to post? We would post at 8 a.m., 11 a.m., 2 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 10 p.m. And then 6 through 10 when everybody was chilling at home. Then the West Coast wakes up and everything. We did that until 2021, 2022. And then Instagram changed and we had to kind of pivot. We had to say, where can we really win now?
Right. Major changes too, on top of the racial bias that's embedded in the technology itself.
Exactly. So then we said, where is there an organic arbitrage? And that's when we started to focus on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have 306,000 followers on TikTok.
Wow.
And TikTok is paying now. If you post a video over a minute, you can get paid $1 per 1,000 views. We get stuff that gets 2-3 million views on TikTok. Instagram has never paid us. TikTok is paying us for everything over a minute. And we started to say, whoa, there's something going on here. And we say, where can we repurpose these same posts that we are posting on Instagram that were Instagram Reels?
Right.
Where can we repurpose that and still make money? That's when we got focused on YouTube Shorts, because there's an unbelievable arbitrage there. We went this year, Tina, we went from 20,000 YouTube subscribers. Now we're at 183,000.
Woo! That's amazing.
On Instagram, we've grown 1,500 followers in a year.
Instagram for sure. If you have a brand that's focused only on Black, so melanin, Black women, HBCU grad, Black folks graduating from college, you started to see a slowdown on your growth, and you're doing everything you were doing before. That's what you experienced. Listen, kudos to you and your team for pivoting and moving where you needed to move and seeing those opportunities and seizing them. Collectively, I pulled together that you had over 650,000 followers online. Is that number correct?
I need more. It was a time last week, November was the most money we had made from YouTube and TikTok ever.
Wow. Honestly, I'm super proud of you. I know you had to really pivot and push through all of this to get here. Offline, thousands of subscribers to your newsletter, the apparel. This is a lot of work. The last quote that I want to mention that stood out to me in that episode is consistency and build brick by brick. First of all, as soon as someone say brick by brick, all I can think about and hear in my head is brick pon brick. You know the reggae song? Listen, we turn up, especially when we go to Jamaica, off of this brick pon brick, right? It resonates with us as Black people in the culture worldwide, because that's what we've done from day one, is build everything, even this country, brick by brick. I know when I haven't been able to live up to the consistency that I wanted to or that I needed to, there was the pitfalls, right? Obviously, when I am able to push through and be consistent on something, there will be growth. But it's also having the wherewithal, I like to say, to keep that going, because even with the consistency does not mean the check is gonna be cut. Okay, the consistency means you have to wear through the storm, wear through the fact that your bank account don't match those numbers online. The bank account may not match the perception that people have about HBCU grad and Todd Finley as a CEO. Kudos to you. I want to know two things. I think getting behind the scenes is, were you making money? How much money were you making in 2017, just a year or so after, from this brand? And then how long did it take to really turn a profit? Because people don't understand, especially younger folks, because they grew up in the internet age, in the influencer age. So they don't understand how much time is put into it. So I want you to tell us, from the behind the scenes, being real, what that looked like and how many years, because I know, did it take to really turn a profit? When we talk about turning a profit, did you make enough money to pay people?
Tina, these are some great questions. I've never done therapy, but I think this is therapeutic.
Oh, wow.
Just talking about things, and you get a chance to look back at things. And for a long time, we didn't make any money. And when I say we didn't make any money, we were making $40,000, $50,000 a year. It was one of those things where if I wasn't passionate about it, and if I didn't own businesses outside of HBCU grad, I would have been out of a house and home. It was 2019 when we started to get into apparel. And
Okay.
once we got into apparel, that's what changed the game for us. You're talking about a guy that had mattress stores that was doing $30,000 a month, and a guy that had HBCU grad that was hardly making $3,000 a month. How do we start making money? We started making money through apparel, but we made money through sponsored posts as well. So people would pay us to post on Instagram, and we would charge people $100 for a post, and we would probably make between $500 to $1,000 a month doing that, which was really no money. I said, how can I grow this without paying people, because I didn't have the money to pay anybody.
Right.
I reached out to different schools of media at HBCUs. I said, do you need anyone to get any college credit for doing an internship? And that's how I started to build it. I started to get interns. So I kind of had to hack it, you know.
Oh, I love that word because that's one of my favorite words. Is
Yeah.
doing like business hacks and life hacks. It's like you literally hacking that whole world of hackathons in technology. You do that in business in general.
Absolutely. It was one of those things where you just had to figure it out. But since I loved it, and so I was so passionate about HBCUs and Black people and marketing and being able to tell stories through other people, I was able to stay at it. But if you're an entrepreneur and you're a real entrepreneur, you know that 98% of the stuff that you try isn't going to work. I knew this was going to work because this had got bigger than anything that I had ever done. And I stayed at it. Let me tell you something. In October of this year, on TikTok, we made $16.
Mm.
Last month, we made $1,400.
Wow.
This month, we're already at $1,400 and it's halfway through the month. Before this, every year we made about $500 to $1,000 on YouTube. Last month, we made $2,700 on YouTube. When you're looking at from then until now on Instagram, we made a total of $37,000 on Instagram sponsored posts. Okay. TikTok, YouTube, we weren't making $1,000 a month ever until last month.
So
I'm
we're
even
talking about 2016
to 2023. So if it wasn't for apparel, we would have died. And then I'm gonna get even deeper. I tried to sell the business in August.
That's real.
I'm like, I'm about to cash out and nobody could come up with the money. So I kept going, but taking a look at the business from an outside perspective, I said, oh, okay, this is what we need to do. This is where we need to focus on a newsletter. This is where we need to focus on YouTube. This is where the TikTok opportunity is. And then we need to get extremely busy on running Facebook ads and selling apparel. And that's what changed the business around. So now you couldn't pay me $10 million for this business.
See, I love it because you're doing it full time now.
Full time.
I'm sure you have your business ventures, but full time.
Full time.
I love it. Congratulations. Well, I want to talk about what we call everything Black blew up. Speaking of the pandemic, being that it also was the growing time frame of Black Lives Matter, the movement, and Buy Black initiatives. Tell us, when did you realize if you made the right chess moves during the pandemic that you could blow up, that the brand could grow and scale?
I knew it was real when the White House invited me to the White House. That was 2020. Okay. We streamed the inauguration.
That happened first before you got invited to the White House.
Exactly. And once we did that, I'm like, we may be a real player.
Chess moves.
Yeah. And that was pretty big. And I think that was the time I knew, I'm like, we're really on to something. We're really on to something. And then I started getting invited to do speeches and things like that. And I'm like, wait, somebody can see this, because I'm one of those fiercely private people. Being so fiercely private, I put business out there, but I don't put any of my personal life. So someone has to dig to even know who owns HBCU grad. I'm not one of those guys that in the bio says ran by Todd Finley or anything like that. And though that was the time where I knew, I'm like, we're on to something. But as you said, as you stated before, and that's how I know that you're the real deal. You knew that those numbers and those followers and those subscribers, that doesn't mean you have that money in your bank account. Full transparency, I'm a hustler, but I always wanted to be somebody that built something bigger than just making money. This was my thing, and I took a couple steps back to take 5 steps forward. So it's amazing that we're having this conversation, and I appreciate you even inviting me on this, because in the last 90 days, something has happened.
Right.
It's Things
Right.
are different. I looked at that deposit this morning. I hadn't seen one like that in a while.
You built a brand that is worthy of something. Honestly, that's the real part. If you're not an entrepreneur yet, but you're an aspiring entrepreneur, that you need to understand, you have to fight through the that feeling of letting go, giving up, because it happens. I was supposed to be meeting with you last week. It's twofold. I just didn't feel ready, but then I lost my voice. You couldn't
Mhm.
even get ready because my voice was gone. And you go through that all the time in business, because there is that, the even when you're growing or just life is happening outside of business. I appreciate you sharing, because obviously the folks that don't listen to the Pivot Muse won't even know some of these tidbits of real nuggets. People don't realize, when I said that everything black blew up, there's a lot going on. We know, listening to your podcast and following your growth of HBCU grad, in February 2019, you had about 60,000 IG followers. About a year and a half later, October 2020, you were over, like, almost at 100K. You could see the growth was happening. And then that goes for all the new companies that came out, right? Shopify was a really big player in the game in 2020. That e-commerce platform made it easy to jump in and start selling apparel, whether it was drop shipping or whatever it was. We just saw what can happen if Black folks make a commitment to buying Black. And
Yeah.
then what happens when there's white guilt. To be transparently, that guilt from corporations and people playing through that and saying, oh, we need a Black initiative, we need to support these Black businesses, oh, we need to shop Black. So that became a thing. There was opportunity. If you had an idea and you hadn't tried it, that's definitely a time to jump in. You got to see those opportunities for sure and jump in. It was also a time that, like, you turned the pandemic into a bandemic. That's, I'm quoting Mikaela, that's our producer, okay? But we all know the pandemic came in and took the world by storm. So how did you find the spaces that was needed to really help the brand HBCU grad and to really thrive through
They was handing out that free money, free bands.
that?
They, that PUA and that PPP, was all types of money going out.
Right.
And I'm not going to sit here in front like we didn't get some of that money.
Right. I did too.
And that's where I said, you know what? We're going to buy a bunch of apparel. Like,
Nice.
we had bought apparel before and we had been selling it, but it takes a lot because you have to buy the blanks. We buy the blanks at Alpha Broder. Then you have to run Facebook ads.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to pay your screen printer. Let's say your screen printer is charging you $3 per shirt. If you got 1,000 shirts, that's $3,000 you got to pay the screen printer. Another $3 for the shirt, that's 6,000 just for 2,000 shirts.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to buy some more, because you have to, when the money comes in, you have to re-up. Then you have to pay your shipping. Then you have to pay your storage. It's a lot. Then you got to have to pay your people. So a couple thousand shirts may cost you 10 grand. And with that free money that they gave us, we put some real fire into the having the inventory and the ads.
I
And
love it.
from there, now you get these people's names and you get people on your list, and before you know it, it's starting to turn over. And those shirts and hoodies that made a difference in the HBCU grad world.
I love it. We've been talking about the brand a lot, but we definitely want to talk about the man behind the brand. So moving from a brand to a name, and you mentioned very early on that you are starting to focus on you, Todd Finley. How did you really develop a plan to just start to understand that I need to focus on me as well as the brand?
My friends always tell me, like, man, you need to get out and talk more. Nobody knows who you are. And you're say what you said, that they encourage me because they say I'm a dynamic person and I have a lot of things to share. To be honest with you, I still don't have a great plan on how I'm gonna get my personal brand out there. Probably gonna start streaming because I don't know, did you catch the Kai Cenat and Nicki Minaj stream maybe a day or two ago?
I didn't. I've been a little bit under the rock.
Yeah, Kai Cenat had Nicki Minaj on there maybe 2 days ago. He was the
Okay.
largest streamer. They had 350,000 people watching at 4 AM.
Wow.
You start to look at things like that and you start to think about, how do you create a bunch of content without saying, I'm about to create a bunch of content? Podcast, that's why I'm loving this, because a podcast, you can take the clips from a podcast
Right.
and distribute it. Saying, how can I do that at scale? I'm not a guy that can just say, hey, I'm going to put a camera up and then go do something. I'm a live guy. I just want to talk. And then there's going to be some jewels that come out of an hour-long talk. That's why I think I'm going to get into streaming, because the streaming allows you to just talk. People can just be in the moment with you. And then you just take those clips and then you can distribute it. And you don't have to do much planning.
Right.
When it comes to my personal brand, I'm going to do a lot more of that. All my friends, even they hit me on Instagram like, man, why don't you post?
I can actually understand this challenge of yours. I am comfortable with just making moves and not saying anything. That's enough for me. But I'm here. I'm doing this podcast. You're helping me with my goal to put myself out there. So I get the same thing from my friends. But it's like, you got so many gems to share. You have so much knowledge. Why don't you do something more? Why don't you get in front of the camera? I'm like, I'm good. Sometimes it's the missing key to where we're trying to go because we're so comfortable. You don't grow in comfort. You grow when you're being stretched, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where do you see yourself and HBCU grad in the next 5 years? Do you see yourself going into some other spaces?
I see it being $100 million brand.
I love it.
Like we're on that trajectory where it can get there. At one time, I didn't see it. I thought it was one of those brands that can get to about 3 to 5 mil. But not saying that it's a shoe in, but if we stay focused and grow how I believe we're gonna grow, it can be $100 million brand. And then I have my son, he'll be 16 in 4 days. I don't know if he's gonna go to an HBCU. He's looking at UCLA, he's looking at Howard, he's looking at FAMU. Then he's also looking at some different schools.
Okay.
I don't know. I think he's going to go West Coast, but I would love to give it to him if he wants it. But if he doesn't go to a HBCU, it's probably not going to be the route. Probably won't be able to do it. But I see handing it off probably in the next 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
And being chairman of the board.
I love that.
Yeah, and just allowing the kids to take it to the next level, because it starts to get a little weird when me as a 42-year-old man is interacting with 19, 20-year-old college students.
A beautiful thing to pass it on. And I wholeheartedly believe it's $100 million brand. That consistency that you have is going to pay off. It's already paying off. But really quickly before we go, we're going to play pivot or push. So I'm going to give you a few scenarios. Just answer pivot or push, and we'll go from there. You're 25 years old, in a tough situation with your current employer, very unhappy, no liquid savings. But if you cash out on that 401k, you take home $20,000 after taxes and start over. Pivot or push?
Pivot.
You took the $20,000 and bounced. You have what looks like a promising business opportunity, but also very limited runway to pay the bills. Pivot or push?
Push.
All right. You're in a 5-year relationship. Your partner is warm and loving, and the love is still there, but you realize there is no real growth. As a matter of fact, you're in a worse financial situation. Pivot or push?
Are you happy?
I don't know. I said the love is still there.
Push.
Okay. We've been talking a lot about business. I only get one question to ask you why, and I'm gonna go with the relationship.
The North Star is happiness. We can always get more money. We can always help the other person grow.
Mm-hmm.
They can help us grow. But it's hard to replace happiness. If you're happy, that's everything, because if you're happy, you can make everyone else happy. If you're not happy, it's not going to work, because I have some extremely rich friends and I have some friends that don't make a lot of money, but they play softball twice a week and they come home and drink a beer, sit in their recliner, and they're some of the happiest dudes ever. And I wouldn't trade. People always saying I'd rather cry in my Rolls Royce than be happy in my Honda Accord. And I'm not one of those guys. It's
Right.
all about happiness.
The love is still there. You find happiness in that love.
I'm into the stuff that you can't buy.
Mm-hmm.
Can't buy loyalty, can't buy respect, can't buy love.
Right. All right. Drop them gems in. I'm here for it. Okay.